Hello and welcome to the Where Does It Come From podcast. This time I've got a wonderful guest with me, Bekki Bibko, and she's going to be telling you all about her work with Pace Manningtree and to get Manningtree turned into a plastic-free town. And more recently, she's even been given the Manningtree Town Council Community Engagement Award. So she's really one of these on-the-ground activists doing stuff for her town and changing the world at the same time. So welcome, Bekki.
Hello.
Is that a good enough introduction?
Yeah. I find it difficult to think of myself as an activist, but I feel, just a normal citizen is how I feel. Mum.
So, but I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because the word activist has taken on an almost a different meaning recently, where we see it as, I don't know, chaining ourselves to stuff and gluing ourselves onto things and generally being obstructive, but actually it can be a very positive thing, such as the work that you've been doing with Pace Manningtree. So I really wanted to get you on here to try and see if other people feel inspired to take their town to a new level. So first of all, tell us about yourself, Bekki, and your background and what led you into sustainability.
Well, I live in Lawford. Oh, dear. Oh, sorry.
It's all right. You live where you live.
I'm testing your editing. Okay. So I would think of myself as just a normal mum. I have 2 teenage children. We live in Lawford, which is the bit that's nearest to Manningtree Station. I've lived most of my life around North Essex or South Suffolk, although my husband is from Russia, so not totally local. And until last summer, I was a teacher. I taught Russian in secondary school, and in the summer I changed career and now work for a health organisation, Essex Child and Family Wellbeing Service, giving support and advice to families and young people with neurodevelopmental conditions like autism and ADHD. So that's kind of me, but also sustainability is just how I was brought up. So many of the things that I do day to day, like reusing plastic bags, composting, buying fair trade products, walking instead of taking the car, these are just things I have always done. I grew up in a Christian family, and living out our faith in action is fundamental to what I believe. I guess that the choices that we each make in our day-to-day lives as consumers, as part, mums, friends, whatever, that those individual choices affect other people, and therefore we have a responsibility to live in a way that benefits others rather than harms, that we are stewards of this planet. The Bible says that we brought nothing into this world and we take nothing out of it, and we've got that responsibility to leave behind something that is at least not damaged by us, but maybe even better. There is a verse in one of the Old Testament prophets, Micah, that is kind of what I live by. It says, God has told each of you what is good and what it is the Lord requires of you, to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. And that's what inspires me and keeps me going more than anything else.
That is just really so inspiring, isn't it? And I love your expressions about stewardship, because I think it's so true, isn't it, that it's that whole passing everything along to the next generation. And I think unfortunately that philosophy, which I completely share, doesn't sit so comfortably with perhaps the commercialism, capitalism, consumerist models that have come to light in the last few decades. So perhaps people not brought up with those values of responsibility and stewardship and passing things along to the next generation, and that affecting one person to the other, our duty about affecting one person to the other, won't see that quite so clearly as you do. So it's really interesting to sort of hear that side of things. Sorry, the cat's just had enough and gone. He was chewing my arm for a bit there, but
I think I think it's really important to think where we get our worth from. You know, if your worth is judged by how much stuff you've got or what your status is in your job, then yes, your motivation is going to be about getting stuff and getting that status for yourself. But if you believe that we are each human being, you know, each of us as human beings has an intrinsic worth that is more than that, then you value the person rather than their stuff. And what we do and how we live it is a measure of our worth rather than what we own.
I love that. I think that's really, really interesting and valuable philosophy. So thank you for that. So we met, for people who are listening to this, we met because Bekki was saying that she was a teacher, but she was actually my child's teacher at school, and then my older child, and then my younger son, who's the same age as Becky's younger son, they were friends, have been friends at school. So that's how we've met. And then we met at school things and started chatting about sustainability, and that's how that all came about. And then Bekki asked me to give a talk on ethical, sustainable fashion to her group that she's arranged in Manningtree called PACE. So Bekki, can you tell us a little bit about PACE, how that came about, and also how come you became a plastic-free town?
Well, so PACE started because a friend of mine put a message on our local Facebook group and said, I'm really worried about this climate crisis. Is there anyone else out there who feels the same way that I do? She was also a friend of my son's. Her son was also a friend of my son. So we got chatting. We actually went to an XR talk together, and kind of thinking about how can we make a difference. So we started as a group of people. When I went to the first meeting at the pub, Sarah, I think, was one of the only other people there that I knew. But lots of other local residents came together, and we were all saying, yes, this is something we care about and we want to do more. For me, I think for all of us, that probably coincided with seeing those first protests that XR were doing. I was challenged by their commitment to campaigning for change at a higher level, at level of government and big business, and something that I probably didn't feel I had much to do with, to say about. But there was also a charity that I support called Tear Fund, launched a rubbish campaign at that point, and they were looking at the impact of our plastic pollution problem on the world's poorest. And that starting to educate myself on the sheer scale of our plastic problem, and how our waste is impacting communities in the poorest parts of the world. So PACE got together and we started to think about what our vision was, and it stands for Practical Action for Climate and Environment. And we saw that very much as our vision, that we wanted to take that practical action in our local environment, in our local community, to make a difference. And it was so inspiring and challenging and affirming to connect with local people who wanted to make a difference. So I've met all sorts of people locally that I didn't know before, who have the same desire for change that I have. And I have this, fundamental belief that we are all interconnected, and then when we work together, we can achieve so much more than when we're on our own. So we started PACE and we had big ideas, and then obviously a pandemic came along and that changed the way we were able to function. And so we were on Zoom, and hence we did the Zoom event that you were involved with. And at the end of that first lockdown, I think I'd had a lot of time to think, and I found out about the Surfers Against Sewage plastic-free communities initiative. And I saw how it gave us a framework to engage different parts of our community, rather than just being the people who already care about the environment. It gave us a way of going out and talking to local businesses and other community groups who aren't necessarily just there to do something for the environment, about everybody's responsibility to reduce their use of single-use plastics. So I went to a PACE meeting and I said, look, I've seen this initiative. I think we could do this here. And so it was with the support of PACE that I signed up to be the plastic-free community lead. And I signed up for Manningtree, Mistley and Lawford, because we are three little places that are so, most people don't know where one ends and the other finishes, or the other starts even. And we wanted it to be, we very much saw ourselves as an organisation for the whole of this area. Surfers Against Sewage said, 3 local councils, that's 3 communities. So yes, I ended up as the plastic-free community lead for 3 communities.
Wow.
But we gathered some people from PACE and some people from outside and started putting messages on social media and in our local In Touch magazine, and started talking to businesses and got this initiative underway. And we've achieved plastic-free town status for Manningtree, because Manningtree is tiny. Manningtree's gone above and beyond what they needed to do. So we only needed to sign up 2 businesses and we have 8.
That's fantastic.
We needed 5 community allies. The council came on board straight away and we've had brilliant support from them. We had to run 2 events, which obviously was in a year, which was obviously easier said than done when there are lockdowns and you don't know what the regulations are going to be. But we managed to get those both done, 2 events, one in May and one in November. That meant that Manningtree was awarded plastic-free community status in December. Lawford and Mistley have a little bit of a way to go. Our second event we did smaller, we only did it in Manningtree. So we need to have a second event for Mistley and Lawford. And Mistley and Lawford have met their objective on the number of businesses they have to sign up. But because they're actually bigger, although they're villages and Manningtree is a town, they need to have more community allies. So that's our focus at the moment. We are trying to get those community allies from Mistley and Lawford signed up. And we already have a church signed up last week, and we're talking to the Scouts and the Cubs and the Beavers. So, we're working on that. But Manningtree has that status now, and we really want to bring the whole of this community along and deepen that engagement.
Yeah, no, it's honestly, it's so impressive. It's so grassroots. That's what I really like about it.
Yeah.
You're starting at the bottom, but you're starting with the smallest unit of a person, then you're moving into groups and businesses and councils, and then merging 3 small towns together to do it. But I guess the problem with being 3 towns has 3 sets of goals then, so it's more businesses, more organizations.
Yeah, there are certain things where we can double up. So
right.
We've only set up 1 steering group for the whole of the 3 communities, so we're not duplicating the meetings. When we ran a local litter pick in May, we had 3 places that you could litter pick from. Yeah. So we were covering the 3 communities. And some of our community allies cover the whole of the area. So they've signed up for all 3 communities. So for example, PACE is a community ally for Mistley and Manningtree and Lawford. Whereas something like the Manningtree Street Keepers, who are a fantastic little group of people who meet every Monday morning in Manningtree. And it started as an initiative to stop the council from spraying pesticides in our town. So they do strategic weeding and planting of pollinators and things like that. And they're keeping the town looking beautiful. But they only work in Manningtree. So that's a Manningtree community ally. And when we get to them, first Lawford Scouts will be a Lawford community ally. So it's sort of getting that balance, but it feels a bit like a snowball that, once you've talked to a few people, other people want to get involved. And we had a fantastic moment when fish and chip shop in Mistley signed up to be a plastic-free ally, and they taken all of their packaging to non-plastic alternatives. Everything can be composted or recycled. And we got a message from a fish and chip shop in Lawford saying, why haven't you come and talked to us? We're doing this as well.
But that's fantastic, isn't it? That just shows
Yes.
you, like you say, it's a snowball, but it's also that, again, that grassroots kind of thing. It's all rising up. I mean, I can see, hopefully, if anyone's on this call, you're in Colchester, you're somewhere else in Essex, you know, you want to do your own town, then you can have plastic-free Essex. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, I've spoken, I know that there's a plastic-free starting in Clacton. I've spoken to a lady in Wivenhoe who's interested in starting. Fearing has plastic-free community status. So it's little pockets.
Yeah.
But you know, we're a few years behind Cornwall where it all started.
Yeah.
I look down in Cornwall, there are loads of accredited communities. So you know, we'll get there. And it's got to be locally based, because there's really no point me trying to talk to businesses in I don't know, even in Dedham. I don't go to Dedham very often, it's not that far away, but I've got much less knowledge of that local area. I know what the shops are doing here. And so when somebody calls me up and says, we'd like to talk about this, I'll be able to say, well, I know that you're doing good stuff because so-and-so told me that they've been in and that's the packaging that you're using. So
yeah, exactly. Or you can go just pop in. Yeah. No, but I think it's amazing. I think, you know, it is really interesting. It's an interesting point, isn't it, about having, it could be all sorts of high level, I don't know, laws, restrictions, whatever you want to call them, and positive programs as well, but the people on the ground doing things for their local community. We've seen during lockdown, people are so empowered by their own community, so this is just a great way to do that. And you can sort of imagine a map of the UK with lots of dots all over it, growing and merging together until we actually meet the goal of having a plastic free country.
Yes, and the thing is that there are countries out there that are doing so much more than us. You know, France has just banned all plastic, single-use plastic packaging on fruit and vegetables, hasn't it? We could do that. It's totally possible. Yeah. So you've got to get that balance of asking government to make changes, but also talking to your local businesses and businesses exploring what options there are. And you know, I know that the farm shop and butchers have some plastic free options, but actually he's saying, but some of these just aren't sustainable because I've got to ship them in from halfway around the world. Why aren't we making paper bags that I can sell sausages in this country? Why do I have to buy them in from somewhere else? Exactly. So there's that whole level of, you know, we can't make a huge difference to the supply chain, but we can talk to businesses and they can then talk to their suppliers, and you get the trickle up as well as the trickle.
That's exactly right. You get the trickle up. So they're going to be influencing future design. And then if we find out, if someone in the country, an entrepreneur suddenly thinks, oh, you know, I can do this here, so people don't have to ship it in. There's a business sitting waiting to happen. Then it happens, doesn't it? But you have to have the people asking the questions and prompting the discussion before. And in the case of a business owner, they're going to try it, aren't they? They're going to try it and say, if this doesn't work. In fact, I remember meeting one of the Suffolk strawberry growers who supplies to the co-op, and he was telling me that he wanted to supply all of the strawberries to co-op in plastic-free packaging, but actually when they got them into the store, it didn't work. The lids didn't stay on. Something that didn't happen. They had to go back and do the redesign. But it's all about, until you try it, you don't know. But the will is there, and they will find a way of making it happen because now they know they want it to happen. You know, so it is all very exciting. But no, I just love what you're doing as well. But I don't understand how you do it. I mean, you're volunteering, you're changing the world, getting awards all over the place, you know, and you're working and managing a family. So, what do you think? What is your thoughts on community activism and the practicality of it? Is this something you see that people will take on more and more? Is it a trend?
I think there are two things that are really important here. The one is that it actually makes it easier for me to live by my values because I'm going out and talking to people, and I know what's possible in my local community. So there is that level of I don't have a huge amount of time, and it is easier to get a supermarket delivery than to go out and visit lots of different shops. But if I know what's available and what shops there are, and if some, you know, that, so there's that, then I save that bit of time. So I try and find a balance of those things of, you know, I have to use my time wisely because it's not, I don't have that much time. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, you know, in terms of well-being, we all need a hobby. And most of my hobbies are quite solitary, and, you know, they're things that I can do at home and they don't get me out of myself. You know, I can knit, I can read, I can go for a walk on my own. But actually, for my well-being, I need to engage with other people. I need to get out of the house, and I need to look beyond my little castle where I live. And if you've been to my house, it does look a bit like a castle, really high. So when we connect with other people, when we connect with the local area that we live in, when we engage with the amazing creation that we live in, that God has given us as a, you know, a gift, it enables you to do the things you have to do with so much more energy and enthusiasm. One of the things that I found when I went to that XR talk with my friend, one of their principles is that of a regenerative community. Or you can go back to that old adage, it takes a village to raise a child. You know, our society has become so individualized and relationships are so fractured, and we need that. We need to have that connection with other people and with the place where we live. And this is one of the amazing things that we've got out of the pandemic, of rediscovering those connections with where we live, and not just having dormitory towns, but knowing our neighbours, going for walks around our local area. And so that's what helps me to keep going, is that actually it balances me.
That's a very interesting point, isn't it? Yeah, because you think of, I suppose, without thinking too deeply about it, you sort of think, oh, that's more work. You've got your hard work of your teaching and your looking after the family and all of that, and this seems like more work on top of that. But if like you say, it's actually another complementary thing alongside of all of that, and giving you, I don't know, strength. I mean, I'm very similar in a lot of ways. I like to do talks and talk to people. It gives me energy and strength to be sharing ideas and sharing thinking and feeling like you're achieving something bigger than just what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So I do understand that. It's probably hard maybe for some people who are listening who maybe think, God, I'm working really hard in my bank or whatever I'm doing. Where will I get the energy for this? But I suppose the message is, it's not adding a burden, it's giving you a strength, I suppose, or giving you something.
Yeah, we've had some really difficult times over the last 2 years, and there have been days where I've been at work, I've come home, I've dealt with the family, I'm supposed to be either going out to a meeting or putting the computer back on for another Zoom, and there's that part of you that feels like, actually, I just don't want to. And sometimes sometimes you do need to listen to yourself. Sometimes you need to say, it's okay, I have done too much today. But there are just as many times where I go to that meeting and I'm lifted by listening to other people talk about what we've achieved, what they're inspired by, the new new initiatives, the encouragements along the way. And the thing is that if we look at the news and read the research, the scale of the climate and biodiversity crisis is absolutely huge, and we could end up being completely crushed by it. And you know that what you can do is just a drop in the ocean. But when you get that inspiration and you can see that you have made a difference, it gives you hope. And I feel very strongly that hope is a much better motivator than fear. And we have to have hope that we can still make a difference.
Yeah, That's so true. That's so true. And I think, I mean, with all of the podcasts that we've recorded over the last year or so, it is that message that keeps coming through, that you have to keep going, you have to be hopeful, you have to be positive, and you know, you can't be driven by fear. I mean, I feel fearful a lot, and then, as you say, you have to turn that around and think, what can I do? How can I help? Because otherwise, you just sit there biting your nails, wouldn't you?
There's a book in the Bible called Lamentations, which is really quite depressing because it's a lament, and it's saying this is all awful. There's so much rubbish around us. There's just nothing good in the world. And then right in the middle is the verse that lots of people will probably recognize, that says, because of the Lord's great goodness, we are not consumed, for his mercies are new every morning. And it's that picking yourself up and going, this isn't a new day. The sun has risen again. No, this isn't the end. Whilst we're still here, there's still work to do. And we can make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. And for anyone who watched Don't Look Up, you know, that's the same kind of humor. Keep going, and then accept what it is in the end. But yes, so that's absolutely fascinating. So did you, firstly, this is my slightly shallow question, did you get a nice big award for your plastic free Manningtree?
Yeah,
for your other one?
There's not little, I should say, but on that award up there, is a little bit with my name on, and I will have to give it back at the end of the year. But because I'm up there with the Rotary Club, who do loads in our community, and Save Manningtree Library campaign, and I think it's only the 5th time that this particular award has been given. But it was really lovely to go to the pub a couple of weeks ago and to have the work that we've done. And I feel very much, it might be my name on there, but it is the team. I couldn't have done this. I wouldn't have signed up to be the community lead if I didn't have Pace behind me, and if I didn't have those people who join me on a Thursday evening for our online meetings and say yet again, no, it's probably not time to talk to schools yet. They're still dealing with too much. Okay, we'll put that onto the agenda for next time. You know, those people who have been alongside me and who have, when we've organised events, we put all the effort into organising it, and then Pace just turn around and go, yeah, we'll do that hour, and we'll volunteer, and it just brings it all together. So it's my name on there, but I very much dedicate this to the whole of the team, but also to my family, who support the fact that I go out and do plastic free stuff, and who have to cope with me walking along the road going, I need to come down here and do a litter pick.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean on that one. But no, that's very true though, isn't it? I mean, our families, our friends, our communities, we're all in it together, aren't we? We're all in it together, and everyone has a different role and a strength and a skill to add into this, you know. I mean, I love hearing about some of these projects, like you mentioned, the libraries there, the repair shops, things that are going on. There's some amazing community work happening, and it's just that there needs to be more of it, and then it needs to be more sung about, more talked about and recognised. And so glad that you got an award, your team got an award to recognise that, because that will raise its profile even more. Yeah. And did you get press coverage as well?
We've had, so we got press coverage in December for the announcement that Manningtree had plastic-free status, and there were articles in the East Anglian and in Harwich and Manningtree Standard. But I got a email just this week from Manningtree and Colchester Life magazine, which I don't think I've ever seen, who want to do another feature on us. And fabulous. So it's still going along, and we've got our Facebook page, and we're so excited. I think our post announcing that we'd got plastic free status reached more than 5,500.
Oh, brilliant.
And that's to do with the fact that we've connected with all the businesses and the community allies. So, you know, I tag them and their followers see what's going on as well. And so that's great. And we also have a kind of standing space in Touch magazine, who are one of our community allies, and they publish articles about the plastic free campaign each month, as long as I remember the deadline. So yeah, it's been great, and it was through that the lady from Wivenhoe got in touch with me to ask about how to start a plastic free campaign there. So it's nice to see those ripples going out, that what we're doing is making an influence for other places as well.
Yes, I mean that's kind of what I was hoping for, you know, in terms of getting the word out there and getting awards and things. I mean, yes, it's really nice to get an award for recognition, but it also raises that profile. And then obviously what we're hoping for is that lots of grassroots organisations around the country, if not the world, will do what you've done and learn from your lead, you know, and start going the same way. And then you suddenly end up with a roller coaster of things.
And I've learned so much from some of the other plastic free campaigns that are around. And I think, you know, for you in Ipswich, I would look at plastic free Chesterfield, because that's a similar sized place to Ipswich.
Okay.
And they achieved plastic free status for the whole of Chesterfield Borough last year. And they've done some fantastic work there. And they had to get 50 community allies. So my 25, some of whom I can double up on.
Yeah,
it's like nothing.
It is an interesting point, isn't it? I mean, obviously, I hope someone in Ipswich is doing it. It isn't me. I certainly don't mind helping if anybody is, but you know, there's certainly, my mind starts going, oh yes, there could be that person and that good company and that kind of thing. So it's about inspiring, isn't it? Inspiring the next steps, the next people to do it. And that's my last final question, which is a big one, so don't think you're off the hook yet. Is for anybody listening, what advice would you give to somebody who goes, yes, I'd like to do that? What advice would you give them if they want to make their changes in the community in the same way that you've done?
So I think you need to have other people around you. You can't do it on your own. And so doing something like my friend did and putting a message on Facebook saying, is there anyone else out there who I haven't met who wants to get involved and do something about this? And Pace, we've taken quite a bit of time to get to know one another and to set our vision and our goals. And in the last few months, sort of post-pandemic, or not coming to the end game of pandemic, or wherever it is that we are, we've stopped again and we've gone, well, where we know that our goals are to inform other people, to get other people engaged and to make a difference. How are we doing that? Are the projects that we're involved in a good use of our time? So being clear on what you want to achieve. Is that manageable goals? I hate the phrase smart targets.
I hate it too.
It is that kind of thing of, so for us, that when I set the goal that we were going to achieve plastic free status for Manningtree by Christmas, we had something to work to, and then you can celebrate those little achievements along the way. Whereas if, you know, it's cutting things down into manageable chunks, you also need to learn to say no. And I think the plastic free community framework really helps with that, because it gives me that, well, that isn't actually part of what I'm doing. So somebody sends me an email and they want me to go and talk to their local primary school about the rubbish that's coming through the fence. And I'm like, that's not really. But, you know, if you want to go and talk to them, here's some resources. Here's the way you fit in. So having that sense of your own boundaries, having a team around you, knowing what you want to achieve, having small goals,
and big ones, and audacious
that lead to the bigger ones, and knowing when to say no. And we've got plans afoot here to have a large scale community event to celebrate everything that is happening in Manningtree, because it's not just Pace and it's not just plastic free. Our town council has got that pesticide free town status as well, and so there are plans afoot to put together a big event. And I kind of I said I'll be involved with that, thinking, how on earth am I going to find any more time? But actually, I only need to do my bits. I need to do what I have the skills to do, to be involved with that, and it will be a great thing. And hopefully, we're at the very, very early stages of planning it, but it very much fits in with this whole thing of building community, drawing people in and saying this is achievable, we can make a difference.
Yeah, and I think as well, thinking about the community side, it's not just about busy people like yourself, it's also there are people who are feeling lonely and isolated and want to feel a better sense of community, and this is a perfect way to do that. If you used to be working in London and now you're working from home, you're living on your own, you know, it's a perfect way to get to know people and to do something worthwhile and to have some fun as well.
Yeah. Yes,
So it
definitely.
sounds, but I think you talk about your small goals, but I think saying one day, oh, I think we'll have plastic free accreditation for Manningtree is quite a big, audacious, hairy goal, actually.
I said that though at the point that I knew we were like 80% of the way there. I knew it was manageable. That's the whole point. I
Yeah.
knew that in order to get there, all Manningtree needed to do was sign up. At the point that I said it, we needed one more community ally, one more event, and one more steering group meeting. That was achievable.
Yeah.
I haven't put a time on when Mistley and Lawford are going to get or enough community allies to get accredited status, because because of the pandemic, that has been really hard work. And we recognise that loads and loads of community groups have been really struggling. And if they're not managing to have meetings, they're not going to be thinking about whether they can reduce their use of plastics. But we have offered, you know, I've done a talk to a WI, I've offered a talk to the Rotary to, you know, to help them as well. You know, it's a mutual thing. It's not just us asking them to do stuff.
Yeah, and it's also not a big stick, and the whole time scale thing. You don't want to be saying to people, this has to happen by this time, this has to happen by this time, or it stops being a community grassroots event and becomes somebody with a big stick coming and beating them around the head, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which you don't want. You want it to be, well, it'll happen at the right time, at the right pace, and achieve the goals that everybody wants it to achieve. So
yeah,
so it's brilliant.
I think also you have to be real. You know, you have to say, I have this title, Plastic Free Community Lead, and I put my hand up straight away and say, but I'm not plastic free. Plastic free in this means that we are working to reduce our reliance on single-use plastics. We are reducing our plastic footprint, however you say it, because actually our society is set up in such a way that it's almost impossible to get rid of all plastic. And I haven't got the time to do it properly. You know, zero waste would mean I didn't do anything else at all, I think. But each change we make, each time we do something more, we're taking one step closer to be achieving what we want to achieve. So that zero waste is a massive goal. Little steps along the way. And I love the picture of two ladders, and you know, you have to have small steps on your ladder. If the step's too big, you can't reach it and you're not going to even get that far. But when the steps are smaller, you get higher quicker, don't you?
Yeah, and the more you talk about what you're doing, and then other people will start joining you, and then those steps are easier to take because there's more people involved, and you know, maybe you have more ladders, maybe you have more steps, I don't know, but it could work. No, that's absolutely brilliant, Bekki, and I think what you've done is fantastic. I think having a plastic free town, getting awards, all great, but more importantly, it's that community-led grassroots thing that is making a big difference. So you've got all the things going on at the top with COP26 happening and all of that, and then at the bottom you've got all these people, these, I think community activists is the right word, who are slowly and surely making massive changes, and then that means that it will meet in the middle at some point, I hope.
Yeah, well, you have to look back, don't you? I had my great grandmother was a suffragette. Look what they did for us. My parents were involved, and my grandparents were involved selling fair trade products before they were available in supermarkets. Now, any supermarket you go to, you can see fair trade, and it's not even a choice. Where you're not even choosing to spend more money on things often when you buy a fair trade now, which you were in the past.
Yeah,
so you can look back on those campaigns that people have been involved in, and I'm really inspired by the fact that I've got, you know, relatives who have effected that change in the past, and now this feels like this is the one for our generation.
Yes, you come from activist stock.
Yeah, strong women.
Strong women, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point as well. And the other thing with both of those campaigns you mentioned, we sort of take it for granted now, don't we? We sort of think you know, again, we vote and we're grateful for it, and we have the fair trade and organic, I would say, is another one, and it's just an obvious choice. But now, you know, it's plastic and the environment and the climate for very good reasons, and we'll make sure it happens. But thank you so much. We'll put some links in the podcast text to PACE and to any other thing that your maybe some of your press coverage on the thing as well.
And it would be great to put the link in there, because actually any business, you don't have to be in a plastic-free community to sign up to be a plastic-free champion as a business. So that's a really important one to put in there. So, you know, as a business, you can do it now. You can say, this is what we stand for.
Fabulous. So yeah, businesses do that. Single individuals, grassroots people, you can get together with your town and to get your town or your community signed up to be a plastic-free community. But thank you, Bekki, very much for spending some time telling us about it, and really
thank you for having me.
Your work. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for everything you've been doing for Manningtree, and I hope Suffolk catches up a bit. Thanks, Bekki.
Thank you.